Students, in our previous video lecture, we discussed Rolla Barthes' essay, What is Criticism? But in today's lecture, we want to understand Peter Widdowson's essay, What is Criticism? Some non-definitions. So, from the title itself, we understand that Peter Widdowson has discussed some definitions of literature which may be termed as non-definitions in today's times. Why does he say this word non-definitions? Because according to Peter, some definitions which were popular, which were accepted, which were universally accepted in the olden days, in the 18th and 19th and 20th century, may not be universally accepted in today's times. They may be termed as non-definitions. And what are the new concepts about literature, that also he has discussed in this essay. So now let's begin to discuss this essay. See, Peter Widdowson, as you can see on the screen, was born in 1948 and recently died in 2018. He is the most influential critic of English literature who contributed to the field of literary theory and literary criticism during the second half of the 20th century and also in the beginning of the 21st century. This essay, What is Literature, was first published in 1999 in the book entitled Literature. In this essay, Peter Widdowson has tried to explore some definitions of literature. Okay, he argues that the basic concept, the basic idea of literature is actually a socially constructed category, okay, and that is always evolving, that is always changing. I mean, he wants to say that you cannot fix the definition of literature. With the change of time, with the change of society, with the change of tradition, the definitions of literature also keeps on changing. So this is the basic idea expressed by Peter Widdowson in this essay. Before we discuss this essay in detail, let me tell you about some major important critical works written by Peter Widdowson. Number one is Literature. It is a book, okay, in which so many critical essays are collected and edited by Widdowson, and here he has explored various aspects of literature and literary studies. Number two, he is also known for this work, Reading Literature, an Introduction to Critical Theory. In this book, he has mainly discussed about very popular literary theories like formalism, structuralism, feminism, post-structuralism, and so on. Number three, the book Writing and Difference, which was published in 2001. Okay, in this book, this book provides an accessible introduction to the works of the influential philosopher Jacques Derrida. I have uploaded a separate video on post-structuralism, on deconstruction by Jacques Derrida. So here this book has discussed this theory of post-structuralism in detail. Number four, he has also written this book on literature and science, okay, which was published in 2005. In this book, he has discussed the relationship between literature and science, and he argues that these two different branches of knowledge are not opposites, okay, they are complementary to each other. This is what the basic idea expressed by Widdowson in that book. And number five, He has also written this book, Dismantling the Gadik Theory and Practice in the Romantic Novel, which was recently published in 2014. In this book, Widdowson, sorry, Widdowson provides a critical analysis of Gaelic literature during the times of Romantic revival. But we are not concerned with all these books, okay? We are concerned with this essay, What is Literature, written by Peter Widdowson. So let's now begin to discuss what Peter expresses in this essay. See, in the beginning of this essay, Peter has presented some older definitions of literature. Now, what are the older definitions of literature? You remember when you were studying in first year, I taught you what is literature. Then we generally studied that everything which is written is called literature. So, any form of writing is considered as literature, but this is an older idea. Okay, some other critics also believe that literature has some aesthetic and artistic value. Okay, aesthetic means something which delights us is literature, something which is artistic is literature, and something which is written is literature. Okay, but these are the older definitions, that everything which is written is literature, everything that delights us is literature, and everything which has some artistic value is literature. Fine. Now, Widdowson notes that this shift in meaning has been influenced by so many factors. Earlier the first definition was everything which is written in literature, but later on there was a change, okay, in this definition, and some other people added this idea that something which pleases us, something which entertains the reader is literature. So this shift actually takes place because of so many factors, and these factors are the change in time, okay, the change in education, rise of the novel, and emergence of media forms and all. Okay, so with the development and change in the world, the definitions always keep on changing. Now, in the beginning of this essay, Widdowson has presented his dissatisfaction with all the older definitions of literature, and he argues that none of these definitions is completely satisfactory. Why? Because he says that you take for example the formalist definition of literature. If you examine the first half of the 20th century, which was the period of new criticism, which was the period of formalism, okay, during that time the focus was on the internal features of the text was more important, okay, and they argued that Widdowson argues that this approach to focus on the text only and to ignore the author, to ignore the cultural and social context of the text is also not good. Okay, you cannot completely ignore the social and cultural context in which the literature was produced. Okay, so he is not satisfied with that definition, with that focus on the text only. Okay, he is also not satisfied with the definitions that rely on the notions of greatness or value. Some people believe that something which teaches us, something which has high moral value, high ethical value is called good literature. But again, that is Widdowson argues that this is again highly subjective definition. We may not completely agree with this definition. So instead of offering one single definition, Widdowson says that we should try to look at literature as a contested and evolving category, right? There is not one fixed definition of literature. One definition was popular, was accepted in one period of time, fine, but in the next period of time, that definition may be changed over the period of time. Okay, so the definition of literature is an evolving category. It is a changing, dynamic category. Okay, and this category, this definition of literature is actually influenced by different social, cultural, and ideological factors, right? He suggests that we should approach literature as a dynamic phenomenon. Literature is something dynamic. Literature is highly complex. Okay, and that's why we need some complex definition of literature, some dynamic definitions of literature. No definition can be fixed. Okay, according to Widdowson, these literary texts which are often associated with imaginative or fictional writing. Some people believe that anything which is imaginative is literature. But then what about non-fiction? Even the non-fiction literature, non-fiction drama, non-fiction novels can also be termed as literature. So at the end of this essay, Widdowson has presented 5 important points. Okay, what are these 5 important points? Number 1, he says that literature is a complex, multi-layered concept, multi-layered idea. Okay, so it is a complex thing. It has so many definitions. Okay, and no single universally accepted definition of literature can be fixed. Okay, this is one idea. Second idea presented by him is that literature is not just a collection of texts. If someone says that this poetry, these novels, this drama, these plays, they are literature, but no, every work of art, has some cultural context, some traditional context. So literature can be seen in the light of the culture in which it is produced. So it is interdisciplinary. Okay, and literature also involves not only writing, it involves reading, it involves interpretation, that is criticism, and it involves discussion. Okay, and various cultural and social contexts must be considered while defining literature. Number 3, he said that literature is closely tied to language and the ways in which it is used. So literature has a close connection with language. He says that literature is not just about the content of the text. Okay, it is also about how the language is used to create the meaning. So when we study literature, we must also give importance to the use of language, how language is used as a tool to express one particular meaning to the audience, to the reader. Number 4, he said that literature can be seen as a form of art. Some people say that dancing is an art, painting is an art, sculpture is an art. In the same manner, literature is also an art. Okay, and it has all these aesthetic values which we find in other fine arts like painting, like dancing, like singing and all. So as the singing has some aesthetic value, literature has such an equal aesthetic value. Okay, so literature should not be studied just for the sake of form and style of the author. Some aesthetic value must also be studied, must also be focused when we talk about literature, when we define literature. And the last point, fifth point, he says that literature is not fixed or static, it is dynamic, it is changing, it is evolving day by day. What we understood literature during the 18th century, now the idea is different. Okay, we are living in 21st century, our time is different, our tradition now is different, our culture is different, and that's why the definitions of literature or the understanding about literature also changes with the change of time. So all in all, this, remember these 5 important key points presented by Peter Widdowson in his essay What is Literature. So let me conclude by saying that this essay presents a kind of the concept of literature and emphasizes the ways in which it is shaped by literature is shaped by historical, cultural and ideological factors. Literature keeps on changing. The definitions of literature must also keep on changing with the change of time. So that's all I wanted to tell you about this essay. If you have doubts or questions on this, you do ask me in the comment section of this channel, and please do share this video among all your classmates and friends. Thank you for watching. Thank you.